For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dr. Mike Searcy. Most of my students, colleagues, clients from around the world call me Dr. Mike. And you're certainly welcome to do the same. I am a 20-year professor at various places. I've taught at the University of Hawaii, the University of Illinois, the University of Iowa. I have my PhD from the University of Iowa. I've been here at Somerset Community College and teaching online for the system for nearly 4 years here in Kentucky. Prior to accepting the position I have here, I was teaching at 2 different universities in Saudi Arabia. And then I've also popped around and taught some in China as well for the Education Bureau. So a little bit about me and my background. I've got a PhD in Communication Studies, which really it shouldn't impress you as much as the fact that that PhD means I've got a lot more butt time in a classroom than you do. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. A little bit farther along, and because I've spent a lot more time in a classroom than you have, they give me the opportunity to come here and, you know, share some of that information that I've gathered and thought about and written about with you all. And it's one of those things that I've enjoyed doing for the balance of my career up to this point. I've got research and background in nonverbal communication. Spent some time specifically working in the psychophysiological measures of the detection of deception, or how to tell when people are lying to you. I've got background in communication and hypnosis, especially when we're dealing with people with severe speech anxiety. And I've got background in small group communication as it deals with jury deliberation and interview committees. And so here I am teaching interpersonal communication, and you're all here in Introduction to Interpersonal Communication. And if I ask every one of you why you're here, you're probably going to tell me one of two things. You're either going to tell me it's required, and the majority of you will raise your hands if I did that. Or you're going to tell me it looked like the best way to get out of having to take public speaking. Kentucky is actually a unique animal, species, however we want to look at it, with respect to the communication requirement for your degree. And they've done some pretty admirable moves, and I think this is one of them, and let me explain why. Almost all universities around the country are going to say you need public speaking if you're going to get a 4-year degree, and the majority of you are here, more than likely, to get either a transfer degree to go on and get a 4-year degree so that you can get either further education, but no matter what you're going to do with that further education, your goal is to get a job, start a career, do something. Or your goal is to work on a 2-year program here specifically designed for that very purpose. Get a job. And we're going to do some things in this course that are designed to help you get there faster. And we're going to talk about that with respect to the requirements for the course when we get there. But when we talk about the oral communication requirement, public speaking has always been one of the requirements. And if you ask some of the Kentucky 4-year institutions, do I need public speaking? They're all going to tell you no. What they don't tell you is, we'll take care of it for you when you get here. And they're probably going to make you take it when you get there. Some of you aren't of my generation. Some of you are an awful lot younger than me. I mean, I look good for 107, don't you think? But when I was growing up, this may or may not sound familiar to you. I went home from grade school, from high school, whatever it was we were doing. When I went home from school, I would throw the books down and I'd go outside. And we'd play. We'd, you know, whether it was sports or whether it was running around the neighborhood, we were running around with the neighbor kids. You know, the local kids. What were we learning from that? We were often learning interactive, interpersonal communication skills. I learned that, for example, when I gave a facial expression to someone, I got some kind of a reactive facial expression in return. I learned that my actions had sometimes very interesting and painful consequences. You insult someone, they're likely to swing at you. I learned a lot of skills related to interpersonal interaction that have served me well all the way through today. There are changes over the course of the years. I remember when I was teaching at the University of Illinois, about 2004, and I started talking about where we all were when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded. And it was about 2004, I looked around the room giving this normal discussion, and I'm getting all these blank stares. Space Shuttle Challenger exploded in 1986, and all of a sudden I realized there wasn't a person in the room who was born by that point. And then I started trying to look at, and I've written about and lectured about, the differences between students, and consequently from generation to generation, if you will, but then also when we go out to the workforce, what are the changes that have taken place? I've got nephews, for instance, who have grown up, and they were born way past 1986, but are also in college or graduating college now, who grew up not coming home and, like some of us did perhaps, going outside and learning interactive interpersonal skills just by doing. But they come home and they plug in. Some form of controller in their hands, whether it's a keyboard, a joystick, or a mouse, headphones or earphones, and some sort of monitor. And they would spend hours, days, forget to eat. And when you forget to eat, you usually can forget to go and use the restroom, right? Hours and days in front of that computer, playing games on the internet, whatever it might be. As a consequence, we've got whole generations that have exactly in their repertoire 3 facial expressions, and all 3 of them look identical. And usually they look to people of my generation like blank stares, because that's what they're used to looking at when they're looking at a screen, a monitor screen. Now, you may or may not know people like this. I mean, certainly there's a different percentage of individuals like this. What have they gained? They're excellent computer consumers, computer users, right? We can't say all of them are programmers. Oh, they're all good computer programmers, but they're not. They're excellent computer consumers. Some of them have gone into programming, and that's fantastic. Computers don't scare them, technology doesn't scare them. What scares them? People, right. Interpersonal interaction. All of a sudden, it's that they've lost. And that people of my generation, for instance, many of them from my generation, never really gained the computer, the expert computer consumerism and usage. And so Kentucky started to recognize this, and in some ways, they're ahead of the curve. And that's admirable. They said, you know what, for the oral communication requirement for your degree, we're going to accept one of 2, mainly one of 2, courses. The first one being public speaking, which is the traditional. I'm going to get up and I'm going to give a speech, and that's where you can actually see evidence of oral communication and the oral requirement happening, because there they are. You can see the presentations. And I'm in front of people, and I'm practicing and doing all these things. The other is interpersonal communication. Introduction to interpersonal communication. Now, those of you that may be as old as I am, or older perhaps, may be going, yeah, this ought to be a piece of cake, because I grew up this way, and I understand exactly what you're saying. And that's great, because when we start talking about various theories and things, you're going to start looking at things and going, there goes the light bulb. Ah, I get it, I get it. I always knew that that was important, and I always was paying attention to it, but the fact is, now I'm seeing the light bulb go off. That's what it's called. And that's great. So, okay, so when we start looking at those things, that's perfect. But some of the, we've done a married blended course here. When we start looking at some of the computer stuff, you may be looking at it and going, oh, geez. And that's expected. And vice versa for some of you that grew up on a computer. Okay. So that's why we're here for the interpersonal communication course. And why we're looking at this online course syllabus, well, ignore that online part because that's actually everything. That's actually a mistake on my part. Okay, what books do we need for this course? Who's got what with them? Anyone have the printed access code on them? Yeah, let me borrow this. Let me borrow this. Okay, this is your primary text. This is your primary text. Okay, you probably spent a fortune for an access number. For the classroom course, this particular access will grant you access to the Cengage materials, and this also includes an e-textbook. Okay, so this is required. It also includes an e-textbook. If you're comfortable reading the textbook online, you may or may not want this one. Okay? The bookstore was given instruction that this is required, this is recommended. If reading the textbook online is uncomfortable of an idea for you, you got this as an option. If you're okay with reading the textbook online, you only need this as far as this pairing goes. Okay, that's also why it wasn't bundled together, because I wasn't going to specifically make everyone pay for the text twice. You guys put out enough money for books anyway. So this one's up to you.
I misunderstood you and got both of them, and I can't get that one online. I tried to put it on there. I got into the book once, and then now I can't get it to. I'm gonna go over to the bookstore and talk to them about it, but I can't seem to get it to work.
The code?
Yeah, well, I got it all in. I put the code in
Okay.
from the thing and everything. I had it working once.
Okay.
Then I went back and tried to do it again. I've never been able to. You know when you click on the toy box?
Do you have a pop-up blocker on your browser?
Yeah, I had one on Internet Explorer, and then I dropped the pop-ups. I was trying to do it on Firefox, and I couldn't get it to work, but I dropped the pop-up blockers, and then it came up there, and last time I tried to get up there, it would come up, and it would show the screen, but no book. You know, like the book should be there in the block, but there's no book there. I don't know why.
You may have to actually contact Cengage. Underneath the Mind link, there's a link for Cengage technical support. You may have to contact them. Well, I'm going to talk about that in a moment, if you've got issues here.
Just so everyone knows, you only have till tomorrow to return this too. So if you bought it and want to take it back, you only have till tomorrow to get your money back.
Okay. All right, the other book that is on your list is called The Startup of You. We're going to talk an awful lot about creating positive communication climates interpersonally with our interactions, but we're also going to talk about, if you're here, like the majority of people, you're here in this class because you want to get a credential that's supposed to help you get a job. Whether you're going on for another degree and then find a job, or whether you're going to try and find a job right after this, or kind of enhance your career one way or the other, one of the things we need to pay attention to is the fact that it is not a given, it is not an option anymore, it's a given. Almost every interview committee you will ever be on, someone on that committee, before they even decide to interview you, they're going to Google you. They're going to look on the search engine and look for you. And if you're in a job search, first thing I do is go back through my Facebook profiles and decide whether or not there's anything embarrassing, political, or otherwise on there. Recognize, for example, that you happen to be in the smack dab square in the Bible Belt where you're currently living right now, and if you've got anything that's related to alcohol, get it off there. Because you just don't know who's looking at it and what they're going to judge you on, and you're never even going to know because you won't get the call for the interview. Having said that, we're also going to spend some time working with LinkedIn. If you've never heard of it before, it's a social networking site for professionals and professionals who want to network. This is going to kind of walk us through some of those things that are associated with LinkedIn. We'll talk about this more as we go. But the startup review, I don't care if you get this on Kindle. I don't care if you get it a used book, hardback, softback, but acquire a copy somehow. Okay, bookstore chose to use apparently the hard copies, but it also comes in softback. It also comes out on Kindle, so it's entirely up to you how you acquire it. Thank you. Okay, so that's the text we're going at. You can see here that we've got a very large syllabus. And the people have often asked me, why do you give so much of the syllabus? This is so overwhelming. I've gotten those emails already. You've got until Friday also, tomorrow, to bail. If you don't want to be in this class, you've got until Friday to bail and drop the class, and it won't have any penalty on you with respect to tuition or incompletes or uncompleted for SAPs and things like that. You've got till tomorrow to bail on the course. If that's the case, during the first week minimally of your particular course, it is my opinion, not shared by everyone, but my opinion, that you have the right to get as much information about this course for the entire semester as you can possibly get to make a realistic decision about whether or not you want to do this. And if your answer is, heck no, I ain't doing all this, that's your opportunity. Rather than come back next week and go, I didn't realize we were going to have to do all this stuff. And then bemoan the fact that now you're going to get charged something if you get out of the course. Now, after this week, you have until midterm to withdraw. Here's where you get the W and not just the drop. To withdraw from the course with your own signature and your own choice. After midterm, every professor will have a very different policy. And make sure you check those policies. If you have a lot of life obstacles that may get in your way from completing a course, this is something to think about. What is the withdrawal policy of your professor after midterm? Because you need their signature, and not all of them will give it. And some of them will only give it under certain criteria. My policy, and this is for the record on recording and everything else, right? After midterm, and I can only help you through the last week of classes. If you want out of the course because life gets in your way, come see me and we'll get you out of the course, whatever it takes. I'd rather have you take care of your life obstacles and come back when you're more prepared if life's hitting you too hard, and not have to feel like you have to duck and hide from me on campus. So if you need to withdraw from the course after midterm, just come see me, we'll get you out of the course. After the last week of classes, by the time we get to finals week, I can't help you, it's out of my hands. Okay. So, as far as I'm concerned, however, whenever, if we can get you out, you need to be out, you choose to be out, we'll get you out. But there will come a time when I can't. Okay. And you can read the syllabus. You've at this point have already seen the syllabus in some cases. So let's talk about the Blackboard shell. Again, everything is here. There are no mysteries with respect to this entire class. You know where your grade is coming from. Everything is here. So having said that, let's look at it. First page that you open up to, you've got my email, you've got my office phone number right there up top. So if you need to contact me for anything, my contact information is right there in front. Secondly, you know that the announcements are going to come here. In fact, I just put one up less than an hour ago about your first week requirements that have to be done by tomorrow, or you don't get to stay in the class. Okay, you'll be marked as a no-show and you won't get to stay you want to make sure you get these things accomplished. There was an error on the original syllabus about this ISBN number. Bookstore and the publisher had a problem with the original one, and the publisher had to pull it. This was after I finally found out about it on Monday. And so they changed the ISBN. So if you were one of the people that contacted me and said, the ISBN that you have in the syllabus isn't what they're selling me, I appreciate you coming to bringing that to my attention, because our bookstore has had issues in the past. Fortunately, they did the right thing this time. I was just never told about it. And they got a new ISBN for that, and the bookstore went ahead and ordered it without, on their own, which is what they needed to do. It would have been helpful though if I knew about it. Okay, so you know, and then you've got kind of a rework on a description of what's in this Blackboard shell all the way through. You will see announcements come from me. You will see announcements come from me. This is a Thursday course, so I may wind up doing this on Fridays rather than Mondays, but normally I do Mondays. And I'm going to wait and kind of see how my schedule kind of pans out, stabilizes a little bit. But I normally send out once a week an announcement, which will also be sent to your KCCCS email. It's going to be called Housekeeping and Maintenance and a date. And it's basically going to say, we are currently ending week 1, starting week 2, and as a consequence, this is what I expect that we need to start working on. This is how far you need to be up to, and this, whatever aspect of things we're working on, and looking forward to the next week. These are the items that I expect to be done. And then, and the entire semesters of everything is already there and visible and able for you to get to. Having said that, already there, available, maybe for you to get to, you can work ahead all you want if that is your mode. If you're in the mode to say, I'm going to get this done in advance, especially if you know you've got a big biology test coming up or a big math test or something. You can look at that schedule and say, okay, Dr. Mike needs these things done by this date. I know I've got this coming up. Can I get this Dr. Mike stuff done ahead of time? The answer is yes. Okay, and the answer is yes, you can. However, I will also be putting in those announcements when I'm shutting stuff off. And there will come a time, about a week after they're due, they're not going to be available for you to get to. I don't turn them back on because they've been up the whole time. So if you're in the process of a procrastination mode, my suggestion to you is work as far ahead as you can, and then you can coast for a little while. Okay. So you will get announcements from me regularly about, here's what we've done, here's where we're going. Here's what I expect. No mysteries. No mysteries. Okay. All of the things that are specifically related to you obtaining your course grade are going to be in the Syllabus and Assignments tab. But before we go there, I want to go down here to the Toy Box and eBook. The Toy Box and eBook page looks like this. Your access code will need to be put in the first time you actually log into here, the MindLink CourseMate for Wood. If you have problems with it, like you're suggesting that you already are having problems with it, contact Cengage Technical Support.
I can't even get in there.
All right. There should be a telephone number on the back of, I see the book there. There should be a telephone number in the book, in the actual hard book too. Oh, if there's a number on that too, call it. If not, I'll send me an email. I'll find you their tech help number. Okay, they're very good at what they do. I've been very pleased that when people call Cengage, Cengage does bend over backwards to try and get you fixed. Okay, so work with that. When you go into that and get all registered, it's going to look like this. So here on the side, it'll say ebook, and here it's chapter 1, but you can change chapters and read the book right here. You've got some audio study tools where they're going to talk you through a summary of the various chapters, and sometimes pronunciations of more difficult words. And then sample and interactive quizzes. before you take the quizzes for me, for your course grade, my suggestion is you come here and take the quizzes here because they're not going to count toward your course grade. You can play with them all you want. And when you get something wrong, it will even direct you back to the ebook as to where the answer is. I find that very helpful as we're learning and as we're doing all this stuff. So you've got a summary, you've got glossary, flashcards, and things like this so that you can go through here. So lots of toys. Lots of toys in the toy box. All right, syllabus and assignments. If this is your first course that is heavily geared toward the Blackboard use, or if you've never had an online course, this will help you prepare for online courses if you have other online courses. The Blackboard Orientation, it's a learning guide that was put together by Mandy Davis at our Learning Commons, which is the name for our library here. And she's got a couple of videos there that will walk you through how do you use Blackboard. So if that is of concern to you, come here first. And Mandy's also in the Learning Commons there and is available for questions, etc. Here you can see a copy of the syllabus, the course content and outline, which I talked about briefly already. The beginning is all of the dates specific to your official semester calendar, and as already referred to, the last day to drop and receive 100% refund is tomorrow. Last day to drop a course without a grade, tomorrow. And then which days you have off and things like this. So your official semester calendar. But then here you will see week 1, week 2. Wood is Julia Wood, your main textbook. Hoffman and Casnocha is the start of the week. And as I said, I will be posting, this is week 1, this is what I expect, and a lot of that's going to be based right off of this schedule right here. Okay, so if you want to know what's coming and about when it's going to be due, it's right there. All right, first week requirements, the stuff that I need you to have done as soon as possible. Last page of syllabus. Last page of the syllabus is all personal information and any concerns that you have about this course for you, to give you an opportunity to tell me what those are. I don't care how you get it uploaded here. Whether you print it out, fill it out, scan it, and then upload it. Whether you fill it out online in Word, save the last page as a new document, and then upload it. Whether you print it out, fill it out, take a picture with your camera phone, and upload the picture file. Whether you're having trouble with all those things and you just need to type the entire page into this assignment, however you do it, get me that information if you haven't already done so. A discussion board, all the discussion boards are slightly different than maybe what you're used to if you've used discussion boards before. All your discussion boards will require you to post something first before you can see other people's postings. So it's actually configured so it will require you to post something first. I want you to give the questions as we go through the semester. I want you to give the questions some thought and give your own thoughts and use your own critical thinking first rather than read 5 or 6 and give me a culmination of everyone else's thinking. Put your own thoughts there first. Make a commitment. Okay, and then you'll have the opportunity to post to others. And the syllabus test. You need an 80% on the syllabus test to inform me that you've actually understood the syllabus, looked it over, and got it. The syllabus test, you need an 80% in order to stay in the course. As part of your first week assignment, you can take it as many times as you want. It's worth 1% of your overall total grade. That being said, I would take it as many times as it takes you to get 100, just to make sure you got that 1% taken care of. As I said, there's no mysteries here. You'll know everything you need to know about this course. All right, so that's your first week assignments. Your grade book is going to be accessed there, so if you want to know what you've got and how your grade looks overall for the course, including the final course grade column, that's already there because remember there are different things weighted differently in this course, as outlined in your syllabus, so you can actually go here and say, okay, what did that do to my grade? Because once I've graded things, there you are. Dr. Mike's audio and video notes. You will see here, I have already done audio notes a couple years back about each one of these chapters. They're available for you for downloading into your MP3 player if you want, into your phone, and listen to them later. If you're having trouble with insomnia, download these things and listen to them as you're trying to sleep. Guaranteed knock you out. All right, but all your chapters, I've already talked about all the chapters here. So if you want to get a kind of an advanced, what is Dr. Mike going to talk about, you can listen to these. This semester, as you kind of are getting the idea already, we're video recording, and they're all going to go up on my YouTube channel. And all the links are going to show up here as well. So you'll have the opportunity to kind of go back and review some of the things that we've already talked about in class. Now, in these audio notes, I have a tendency to refer to a number of PowerPoint presentations, and I say things like, oh, in the next slide you will see. Okay? Those PowerPoint presentations are in this folder here. The discussion boards are here. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? Don't look at this and go, oh dear God, look how much stuff is there. Remember, you're just doing a small part every week. You've got all 16 weeks of work all the way here visible. It's all here. Having said that, look at it in the terms of, okay, DQ Chapter 1. So when we start talking about Chapter 1, I've only got to deal with this one. Not look at this and go, oh, there's too many here, I'm not going to do anything. Just deal with the one you got to deal with. Okay, but all of them are here, so you know exactly what's coming. Remember, of course, that the discussion questions are graded on a 5-point scale. If you actually do your question, answer your question very well, cover all the parts, and follow the criteria in the syllabus about how I expect the question to be responded to, you will do yourself a favor and immediately get 3 out of 5 points. What percentage is 3 out of 5 points? Where are my mathematicians? If I divide 100 by 5, what do I get? 20. 20 times 3 is?
6.
Would you be happy with a D on every one of those discussion questions? I wouldn't. We're talking about creating a positive, interpersonal, interactive communication climate. I expect that you're going to be, once you post, you'll have the opportunity to read some of the postings of your peers. And as such, if you want the other 2 points, you will use the same criteria and respond to at least one of your peers' postings. Now, one of the reasons why I've combined all the classes that I have for interpersonal communication into the same Blackboard shell is because not everybody is going to be as quick and on, and on the same time schedule as you do things. And for those of you that are early, and maybe not everyone here is going to be the real early bird on these things, someone in the other classes will also be, and it doesn't make any difference to me. In fact, I encourage you to respond to people who aren't specifically in your class. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's the discussion boards. Every other week, we're going to have what I call thoughtful questions. In other words, every 2 chapters. Every 2 chapters, you will have an opportunity to create your own question that I don't expect you to answer. But, critical thinking and application talks to us about the idea of, can I take these topics and concepts that I've been reading about and apply it to the real world? And as you're thinking about it, you might even ask that question. I've been thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for instance, and some of you that have had communication courses or psychology courses before, that's a very familiar concept. And we're covering it in one of the first early chapters. I've been thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for instance, and while I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering how Maslow's hierarchy of needs might actually apply to thinking about the job interview. That's a great question. And as such, you might put that question up. You're not going to answer your own question, but you will be responsible in your response to somebody, one of your peers' postings, to answer one as best you can and give your thoughts about somebody else's question. So when we talk about discussion boards, do not upload Word documents. Because not everybody has the same computer systems, and it makes it inconvenient for them to see and read and get at your posting so that they can respond to it. Now, if you want to start it in a Word document, then copy and paste it into your discussion. You can, but don't upload the document directly. Okay, I'm only going to tell you, I'm only going to send a message back to you asking you to redo it. So, okay. So that's what those, the thoughtful questions are about. LinkedIn journals. Let's talk about LinkedIn journals. We talked about the positive communication climate that we're looking to actually craft and create online. We talked about LinkedIn, linkedin.com. It's an entirely separate website. You do not have to pay for a profile. And as far as I'm concerned, after this semester, if you think this project wasn't worth your time, delete your profile. Okay, that's entirely up to you. But what I want you to do is I want you to create a profile, a free one. They have the option of paying for one as well, and I don't require you to pay for one. It's not cheap. But I want you to create a profile. And during the first chapter, your sole task is to create a profile and link with me, link with my profile. In Facebook terminology, it's basically creating a profile and friending me, right? You know this term. Here we're talking about connect. Did they use the term connect or link? Okay. So what I want you to do, your first week, create a LinkedIn profile, link with me. Now, pay close attention because not everything is in Blackboard and not everything is in LinkedIn. So I want you to follow me. And this is also one of the reasons I'm recording this, so that you can come back to this if you need to. As you read this book, and it's about networking online, it's about, you know, kind of contacting groups and people who could benefit your potential career perspective. I think it's actually an amazing prospect. What they do here, I think, is great. There's an awful lot of jobs that people are getting from postings here rather than the newspaper or other web sources. All right. And so I think as you explore this, you're going to, I hope that you will have the similar experience that many of my former students have had and tell me that this was a great idea. I have a lot of students who start this book and 3 hours later have finished this book because they couldn't put it down. This is not a cookie cutter project. At the end of every chapter, from chapter 2 through 7, and there's only 7 chapters, and it's an easy read. At the end of every chapter, from chapters 2 through 7, I think page 44 is chapter 2. Yeah. There is invest in yourself at the end of every chapter from 2 through 7. The sections in invest in yourself are entitled in the next day, in the next week, in the next month, and network intelligence. Your task is to, from the reading this chapter and looking at these things, is to update, because your profile is something that should evolve, just like your resume evolves as you do different things and want to add these things to your resume, so should your profile on LinkedIn. Your task is to adjust, craft, create, change, morph, however you want to look at it, your LinkedIn profile based on what's discussed in that chapter, and specifically pay attention to 2 sections, the first 2. the in the next day, and in the next week. Then what I want you to do is I want you to go to Blackboard, not LinkedIn. Okay, you're doing the work on LinkedIn, but you're going to tell me the how and the why and the what on Blackboard. So you're going to go here to syllabus and assignments. You can go down to the LinkedIn Journals folder. You're going to go over here to start up chapter 2. Now this script is the same for every chapter. Basically what it says is that you went to LinkedIn, you linked with me, and you went from chapters 2 through 7 to the section specifically entitled In the Next Day and in the Next Week. And what I want you to do is in the journal, much like your discussion board, except the difference between a discussion board and a journal is the journal is only between you and I. The discussion board is open for everybody to see. Okay? The journals are between you and I. And primarily because what I want you to do is to address the concerns in the next day and in the next week as they apply as best you can to your individual situation. It's not a cookie-cutter project. And when you come here, I want you to tell me what you were thinking, what you did, and why you think you did it that way. Does that make sense? And I want you to address each of the things in the next day and in the next week. And in fact, I want you to give me a minimum of 2 paragraphs. And I want you to title both paragraphs, one of them, in the next day, and the other one, in the next week. What did you do and how did you address those issues? No mysteries. Yes?
Can we speed up as fast as possible?
Yes?
So like I could...
If you wanted to do it in a couple of days' time, yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. Since these are not time sensitive, as they are requiring interaction with your peers in class, during a certain week, you're going to pay attention to discussion question 2, and you've got to respond to somebody during that week. And if people aren't ahead of the game like you are, you may have to wait for them to put their initial postings in for you to respond. Well, this one, we're not waiting for those things. You can go ahead and get a jump on it if you want to get the whole thing done. That's entirely up to you. All right. Quizzes. All right. The quiz number corresponds to the chapter in the Julia Wood text. So quiz 1 is about chapter 1. Pretty straightforward. Quizzes are set up. There are 10 questions for each chapter. I'm giving you 30 minutes to do 10 questions. And I've had people come back to me and say, Dr. Mike, do you realize that all your students are pulling the wool over your eyes on that one? They're getting one on you. I said, why? And they say, because if they've got 3 minutes a question, they got time to go through the textbook. Can't really do that on the e-text probably, I don't know. But they got time to thumb through the textbook and find the answers. And my response is, who do you think is getting anything over on whom? I got every one of those students into the textbook. If we didn't test, a lot of people wouldn't bother to read. 30 minutes is ample time to do 10 questions. Blackboard has a history, as many of you may or may not know, of crashing. It has a history of, while you're in various tests and things, of booting you out. Couple things to remember. Make sure you're hardwired and not Wi-Fi'd when you're trying to do these things. Don't try and do this over the wireless internet. Try and do it where you're hard connected somehow. And if worse comes to worse, make sure you do it here. But if I only gave you one opportunity to take these quizzes, every time we have a rain shower, an ice storm, a windstorm, or a sunstorm, and Blackboard goes out, I have everybody call me and say, it booted me out, would you reset my test? And I know this also frustrates Blackboard workers as well. Because whether it's the configuration or our servers or what it is, There's just issues. And they've constantly had issues for years. To try and countermand that, you have 2 opportunities to take every quiz. So if it boots you out because of technical difficulties, you have the opportunity to go back and take it again. Now I'm going to go ahead and tell you the trick here, right? Or how you can take advantage of that. I have specifically scheduled every test in the grade book to give you the highest of 2 administrations. So if it boots you out, it's going to automatically give you like whatever, 60, 30, 40, whatever it was at the time it booted you out. And count everything else you didn't answer wrong. Well, what happens if you get all the way through that quiz the first time and you got a score you didn't like? Take it again, because I've got all the quizzes scheduled to give you the highest grade, not the last or the first. So take it again. Why would you take it again if you got the best score? To be exposed to the questions. Why would you want to do that and be exposed to the questions? Because the final exam is made up from the same test bank. Are we setting you up for, hopefully, for success here? I hope so. I hope so. Okay, so take them, and what I would do, as I said before, is go to Cengage first and take the sample quizzes first. And you've got that much more opportunity to go through all those things. Okay, so those are the quizzes. And then finally here, and the final exam, 2 hours, 30 minutes for 50 questions. If you're doing your math, that's 3 minutes a question. Service learning. We talked about the LinkedIn, we talked about the fact that we're going to give you the opportunity to network. And we're going to force you to do the opportunity to network, as far as that goes. I mean, and the LinkedIn is worth 10% of your overall course grade. So if you want to come to me and say, I don't want to do this, don't. You got 2 choices. Either give up 10% of your course grade, or you got till tomorrow. That's entirely up to you. Okay? You're not going to offend me one way or the other as far as that goes, and you don't need to duck and hide from me on campus. The service learning takes it to the next step. I've had a lot of positive feedback over the years whenever we've done any kind of service learning project. Most people might even grouse about it at the beginning and then at the end tell me it's one of the best learning experiences they've ever had. I did not answer the question that I asked of us earlier when we talked about how do we actually get interpersonal communication to fulfill the oral communication component requirement of your overall degree, especially when people are taking interpersonal communication online and might only take it online, not see anybody, and they can theoretically hide behind the computer and not have any face-to-face interaction because they're reading the book, taking the test, writing some assignments, and out the door they go. Whereas the people who are earning their oral communication course in public speaking, even when they're taking public speaking from me online, they have to find 10 adult audience members, for example, who are not their immediate family as an audience for every one of their speeches. And I need to see all 10 audience members throughout the entire course of the speech as it's uploaded, or the speech doesn't count. So we look at this and say, how do we answer that question for interpersonal communication? And at this point, we're answering that question with what project that I'm referring to as service learning. I'm also calling it interpersonal, interactive communication and application of practice. You know, I said I had this great PhD from the University of Iowa. One of the things I disliked about a PhD program is that they spend an awful lot of time talking about theory and very, very little time talking about how does this theory connect to real life. And if we can't connect it, it's useless to everybody. That's what this is about. Finding a place in your community where you can contribute. And what you're going to wind up doing is interacting on a regular basis with people. And I want you to think about these concepts and how they've applied that we're talking about. But at the same time, what are you doing? You're making a connection and a contact who may very well be your next reference letter writer, who could very well help you get that next job, and the experience alone you can put on your resume. So we're taking the communication and going far into the application realm and saying, how is this really going to help you? And if you pick a project and start looking for a project that where it would actually be related to what your future career goals are, you may find yourself really helping yourself. I've got some people who are accounting majors who have already sent me messages saying they'd like to go and work with this particular organization that does taxes for low-income individuals. I think what a marvelous idea. Talk about the experience they're gaining in their field and potentially a letter writer, if not someone who may even potentially hire them in the future. So, and that's what this all is here. And this is where you upload those things. The final project, as outlined in your syllabus, needs to be one of two things. Either a 20 PowerPoint slide presentation covering all the points specific to your all the points specific in your syllabus and the criteria that we talk about. You do not have to give that presentation as an oral presentation per se. I might ask for volunteers who might be willing to do so, but it won't be a requirement. Or a 10-page term paper. Most people choose to do the PowerPoint presentation because it's often a whole lot easier. And actually, I prefer it that way. Okay. And then finally on here, your final exam, which we talked about already. Office hour access is next on this list, on the side list here. I do my office hours, and I'm going to put an announcement out probably beginning of next week, now that my schedule is stabilizing, of when I'm doing office hours. Some here in my office and some online. Those specifically that I'm doing online, I do through Blackboard Instant Messenger. You can get Blackboard Instant Messenger through this link here. That's why I put it here. Okay? Toy box and ebook there, and then if you have issues with Blackboard, your help tab is there. Okay. Can I ask you